Hello again and welcome to this bonus episode of the Luxury of Choice podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer with George James and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. Now, if you listen to us regularly, you'll know that we signed off for the summer a few weeks ago and we're planning to come back with the full team in mid-September. However, we do have a new member of the training team that's joined us recently, based excitingly in the United States. And we thought it'd be great just to get that new trainer onto one of our podcasts, just to give him a chance to introduce himself, but also find out a bit more about his background and also what he's planning to do in North America. And his name is Jonathan Slasinski. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me. And just really excited to be joining the George James training team and bringing the great portfolio of trainings to be able to focus here in the States.
Right, we're looking forward to having you and working with you. So without sort of going into your sort of full LinkedIn career history, it would be great just to know a little bit about yourself, background, a bit about your career, and then I guess what's led to you eventually coming to join the training team at George James.
Yeah. So just briefly, grew up in New York, spent most of my adult life in Washington, D.C., and that's actually where I kind of cut my teeth with sales.
Okay.
And I currently find myself living out in California. In
Nice.
San Diego. From a career perspective, I did start off as a high school science teacher. So I was a high school biology and an earth science teacher. Did that for a few years and then made the transition to sales. A bunch of my friends one was working for BD, another was working for a pharmaceutical company. And I was like, man, I think I could do this. Kind of made that leap. And from there, I worked for some pharma companies, mostly in life sciences, where I've spent the most of my career. And I've sold everything from, $8 gels to reverse transcription reagents up to $500,000 sequencers.
Great.
It's a career that spanned working for Boehringer Ingelheim, made the transition into life sciences, working with EMD Millipore, spent a vast majority of my time working for Bio-Rad, and that's where I kind of had that reagent experience as well as the capital equipment experience.
Of course, yeah.
And then later on, moving into 10x genomics and single cell and spatial, which was kind of more of the cutting edge things that have been going on in the life science, scene the last, probably 5 to 10 years. The last 5 years, I found myself actually changing roles, and which is something that I was always really interested in from the time of my pharmaceutical career, where I got like the best training. I was like, this training is just awesome. And as my career progressed through life science, I was like, there's no training here. It was just, hey, here's a PowerPoint, go out and sell, right? And I had the opportunity at 10x Genomics, as we were growing from 50 reps, probably, up to 300 over a few years, to create an enablement program. I was the global head of enablement there, created a global enablement program, instituted a sales process, instituted onboarding, instituted product training. And then I continued doing that similar job my last career stop, which was Synchro Genomics.
Okay, great.
How I came to George James, as an internal, enablement trainer, we often used external trainers to supplement some of the things that we were doing. And I had the great pleasure of meeting Jonathan Cooper from George James. We did an amazing negotiation training, kind of hit it off, kept in touch from there. And late last year, he rang me up and was like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, you know what? There could be an opportunity for me to come aboard. And, as things happen in this industry, there's always ups and downs with companies. I found myself at a down, but I now find myself at a higher peak here as I joined George James, and really look forward to bringing my experience, not only from sales, but I was also a manager throughout that career, sales and management, and then bringing that experience I have selling the wide variety of products to the life science industry and being, what George James specializes in. We've walked in these people's shoes. We've done this job and just trying to sell these trainings to, the life science companies that I know here in the States. And
I think you make some great points there. First of all, Jonathan does that to all of us. Jonathan Cooper, that is, by the way. That's how I ended up here as well. He was actually my coach in one of my jobs a number of years ago now. And I think, the points you make is super important, really, in terms of the training we offer. We believe is best in class. But as you say, we've done the job ourselves across the team. We've all had a number of roles in both consumables and instrument sales, and some senior roles like yourself, really. But we've kind of understand the industry. We understand the marketplace that we're training and the customers that we work with. We've kind of done similar jobs to them, really. And I think it's a really important point you make there.
It's what I really enjoyed about first meeting Jonathan and working with him, because I was like, man, this guy really knows what we're doing. He kind of gets us. And, I'd look back at kind of where my career was, where I'm sitting, in executive leadership, providing a forecast. That's something I did as a manager. But as a rep, I also had to build a funnel and provide my manager that forecast, which then went up the chain. So it's kind of cool having these experiences and, seeing where you could be better at, seeing where, you definitely excelled at, and then just being able to bring that training to, a whole new group of professionals is pretty cool.
So we've always done training in North America. In fact, I was only in California myself back in May, running a training course for a company. So, we're not sort of new to the Americas in terms of, offering our products and services, but you're the first permanent based trainer we have in North America. So where do you think, or how do you think that will make a difference to both our customers, but also to our business moving forward?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a great opportunity for George James just to see some more organic growth. You're bringing on somebody else who's going to be going out there driving new business. But I also think the strength is the fact of the network that I've developed over the last 20 years and being able to reach out to these different companies, being able to get more, whether it's locally here in Southern California or in Boston. There's all those biotech hubs that we have here in the States. Just being able to have someone who can really focus and penetrate those hubs, I think is going to be great. Along, of course, as I've said, my career spanned from a rep up to management. A lot of my colleagues now are in management, senior management, VPs, so it's going to be great to ping them and see what their enablement needs are and see how we as a company can provide them, the training that they need.
Absolutely. Your network is vital in this job, certainly. And did I read recently that California is the fourth biggest economy in the world if it was a separate country now, something like that?
Fourth largest economy in the world, just one state, which is pretty amazing.
So plenty to go for, plenty to go at in that case,
Plenty. I think that's driven mostly by the AI, but there is a very, very rich history of biotechnology in California, and it is just ripe with fantastic companies, again, many of which my network works at. But whether it's California or the States, I really look forward to kind of just being able to drive some new business and really, help George James grow.
Sure. Fantastic stuff. So one of the things that I really wanted to explore with yourself, really, you've had an interesting career, long career in the industry, and your last, I think you said 5 years, have been in an internal training enablement role, offering, training and some business skills and sales management skills internally within a company. You're now working for an external sales training provider. And sometimes one of the pushbacks we get, I know I get from time to time when, I reach out to a potential customer is, oh no, we've got our own internal training. So I'm interested in how you see external and internal training capabilities working together, because clearly you did it when you got ourselves involved, in your last job, when you met Jonathan.
Yeah, I think if you're running an enablement shop within a company, if you're doing it the right way, you are incorporating a hybrid approach. You are going to be using your own skills, your own people to do certain things. And then you're going to look to external providers like George James to be able to supplement what you can do. The biggest, I guess, I don't want to say weakness, I guess the barrier that I had, when I was building the enablement program at 10X and then even at Singular Genomics, is just bandwidth. There's so much an internal enablement needs to do. They need to onboard. They need to run an LMS, and just running an LMS is kind of a full-time job. Product training, right? Now that's a huge part of an internal job, is product training, features, values. How are we getting, that messaging across? And then, of course, there's all those sales skills, there's sales process, there's sales tools, and then layer on leadership training. The tentacles just keep going. And unless you have a team of 100 people, it's kind of tough to get to everything, which is why we looked to external trainers, and it was such a huge benefit because they bring in different skill sets that would take, a lot of time to develop right out of the box. So I think if most enablement teams are going to want to do their own thing, right? There's a cost to it, right? There's things that they're going to want to, say that, hey, this is what we've got doing, but you have to be open to that hybrid approach. And again, it just comes down to that bandwidth about like, what do you want to accomplish? And what can you accomplish? And that's why being able to bring in people like us, and it was so key in building the programs that I built by being able to bring in George James and help us with certain aspects that we needed.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think also what can happen when you do work, for some pretty big companies as you have and I have as well, is that you get in like a very much a kind of a group think almost. The only way is our way, and sometimes getting somebody like ourselves in, George James in, can just have a fresh pair of eyes or a fresh perspective or even realize that help the company realize there's a big blind spot within the business or within the capabilities that they didn't realize. And just having those fresh pair of eyes can really make a difference there. Is that something you would do as well, do you think?
I think that is something that resonates totally with what we did, and especially what we did with George James, which was our leadership training. And again, it's, this internal bias, I guess. You have relationships as an internal employee. You have relationships with the managers. You have relationships with the sales reps. Does a bias come out when you're training them? I'm sure there is a little bit to that. But I will say when we had our leadership training and we had a fresh eye on it, there were some things that in our debriefs that I was like, ooh, I wasn't even looking at that. Or, oh, I didn't see that from this certain person, and kind of the way that they were engaging in it. And I do think you bring that up. It's this being able to bring in an independent perspective to your culture. Yeah, because within every culture, there's this groupthink. There's that kind of, implicit bias that you have about the people that you like, the people that you don't like. And It's such a nice to have a neutral arbiter of skills, right? Like it's just a great thing. And it was a really cool thing that we learned after our leadership of just getting another perspective of somebody of how they thought these people kind of, my ranking would have been here, here, here. Then all of a sudden we have this, and it allows you to think differently.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So you've obviously gone through your training and onboarding with ourselves and you're up and running now in North America. What are the first things you're planning to do in terms of courses that you're planning to run? And, traditionally we always offer a mixture of what we call scheduled training courses and also the tailored training where we do a specific program for a particular customer. Where do you see your first focus to be?
Yeah, there's the scheduled trainings I think are very, they're appealing to me, and it's a way that I think we can really draw in different people from different companies. Prospecting has been a huge thing that I've been doing since I've been here, just reaching out. And a lot of companies are saying, hey, we don't really have the bandwidth for a full 20, 30 person training, but I've got 3 people that I want to send to this, this sales skills training. So I'm really, really excited for the launch of Win Selling and to be able to hold a scheduled training probably mid-October, maybe early November. Excited for that. But my other passion lies in EQ and leadership training. So I was a big proponent of emotional intelligence training. We ran it with, probably 50, 60 people over at 10X, brought it to singular. What I love about it, it's just a way, when people think about emotional intelligence, they're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to hug somebody, I'm going to love somebody, I'm going to cry. It's not about that. It's about harnessing your emotions to be more effective and efficient in your work. And I think that once people get that side of it, it really empowers them to be better. They're just better per people, right? If I'm a better person at home, if I'm a better person at work because I can handle my emotions, it's something, that I've seen such growth from. And I'm really excited to, start bringing that, to the masses as well. So really excited for the launch of Win Selling. I think there's some fantastic things within that. And then, EQ is another thing when we focus on, along with, the core trainings that we offer, mastering the customer conversation, prospecting, and all that good stuff.
Great stuff. And you get a little teaser there, something that we've been working on as a team. More to come. I won't say any more than that because we haven't, when the podcast goes out, we'll just be on the cusp of going live with something new and exciting from ourselves. So watch this space on this one. When you're not delivering training, you're not prospecting for business, what else do you get up to? What do you do in your downtime, Jonathan?
Yeah. There's always got to be that work-life balance. I mean, as you've known in your career, sometimes, especially in sales, right? It can be so intense. It can be so such a time sink of, I have to get to this. I have to get to my funnel. I have to get to my emails. And I will say throughout my career, I've learned you have to have this balance and you have to really kind of take care of yourself. Huge snowboarder. I live
in California. I would have thought that was, I guess, in the mountains. Yeah.
Well, in the mountains, in California, we drive to our weather, right? So we don't have weather. We drive to our weather. But my wife and I are very big snowboarders. I live for the winter, doing that. But during the day, it's getting to the gym. It's going for walks. It's just, trying to eat as clean and be the best person I can be, outside of, what's going to always encompass, which is work, right? Trying to get that balance in. If it's not snowboarding, it's during the kind of spring, fall, summer, it's mountain biking. So we do like to get out as much as possible.
Sure.
But, as we're here, try to be as active as possible as well, in the things
that's super important. Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, it's great to have you on your first podcast. You'll be coming back, I know, more often when we get up and running with the Series 3 of the Luxury of Choice, which will start in mid-September. And you've already contributed great amounts to the team with some fresh ideas and some thoughts already. So great to have you with us. I will put your email address and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so people can reach out to you already if they want to make contact with you and talk to you about some training capabilities in the States or anywhere else, I guess, in the Americas as well. But thanks for coming on today. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. I really look forward to taking part in this podcast as we move into, season 3, and so excited to be, with George James and bringing these great trainings to the network that I have here in the States. So thanks so much for having me today.
Great stuff. And just to finally wrap up on the series 3, so we will start again with the third series of the Luxury Choice around mid-September. So we're currently looking at sort of September the 18th, that kind of time window. And we've already got some topics that we're planning to work on. So in no particular order, some of the themes that we're going to discuss include why the sales call starts before the call. Hold that thought. Why the demo or the demonstration isn't the sale. The dangers of the corridor conversation, which is an intriguing headline, and why rejection isn't personal. So make sure you subscribe to the show and you also follow us on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get all of those coming into your podcast feed mid-September. We'll be back then with our series 3. Until then, happy selling, and we'll talk to you soon.